Hey up! Right, in this episode, Uncle Stu gets a new BSA helmet, Paula enrolls in the California Highway Patrol, the BSA gets a workout as a pillion hack over 400 miles, with surprising results and MPG figures. Now, at the end of this video, we will be having an exclusive interview with the newly instated Officer Paula Poncherello, answering questions and expressing her opinions and experiences of long-distance touring as a pillion on the BSA GoldStar 650. But, and as I often say to Paula, this is a big but, in order to see any of that, you need to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Otherwise, I'm going to play an hour and a half of unbridled, uncensored Morris dancing to waltzing Matilda. It's up to you. Don't test me, I can wait all day. I'd watch this all the way through, I'm immune to it. You just have to hit like and subscribe, then it'll all be over. You're hurting nobody but yourselves. A bit of a strange things happened with this BSA GoldStar. If you remember from recent videos, Paula hasn't ridden pillion with me for about 8 years, up until a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago. She didn't like the Triumph T120, she didn't like the Interceptor, she wasn't too keen on the Classic 500 because the seat was too small, and then she discovered the Classic 350, which she really liked, and we started going out on it quite a lot. Now, a couple of days after I got the GoldStar, I made her the offer of going pillion. She was a bit reluctant. I think it was like a one-off deal as far as we were both concerned, just to test it out and see what it was like. But thereafter, after that ride, every time I gave her the choice of the 350 or the 650 GoldStar, she chose the GoldStar every time. And obviously I've only got this bike for a limited period, 2 weeks, and I've got to get as many miles in as I possibly can to give it a proper, honest appraisal. And to my surprise, she often elected to come with me, even though I didn't actually ask her to the point where over the course of a week we've been through 3 tanks worth of fuel, or well, 2.5, and covered, by my reckoning, almost 400 miles. In fact, my riding this motorcycle has been almost exclusively with a pillion so far. I've only managed to put about 30 or 40 miles solo riding in on it. Now, just so that there's no misunderstandings, this is not a full review of the BSA GoldStar. That's yet to come. This is a touring with a pillion appraisal of the bike. Although obviously there are going to be some sort of factors and descriptions which are going to cross over between the two videos. And I'm putting the effort into making this video because it's become very apparent to me that quite often the purchasing decision of a motorcycle can depend largely or solely on whether the spouse approves of the bike or not. Now, we're all different. Some of us keep our motorcycling hobby separate from our partners, and, you know, everybody's quite happy with that situation. Some partners suffer for our sake and sort of indulge themselves in our motorcycling hobby from time to time. And some spouses ride with us on a regular basis because they enjoy it as well. And all too often I get little accounts in the comments section from guys who've had to forego one motorcycle in favour of another because his wife enjoyed it more. It's a very important topic, yet most motorcycle reviewers totally ignore it. Now, as luck would have it, this particular BSA GoldStar came equipped with a set of their OEM panniers, which meant we could go shopping for groceries, shopping at garden centres, more shopping at garden centres, clothes shopping for Officer Poncherello, and just general sightseeing and, just having a good time on a motorcycle. That's what they're built for. So, to start off with, I'm going to give you my appraisal of what I think of this bike as a long-distance pillion tourer, followed by a short interview with Paula just to see what her views are and why she likes this bike so much. Now, the first thing that I absolutely have to mention is that although this bike has one of the old-fashioned pillion seat straps, it does not come with a pillion grab rail. That's an optional extra. It comes in two parts. There's like a loop that the grab rail fastens onto, and between them you're looking at almost £150, which is a lot of money for a grab rail that should have been included on the bike as standard as far as I'm concerned. It's got a good pillion seat, it's got pillion footrests. For safety, it should have had a grab rail as standard. Now, when Paula first got on this bike, I thought this was going to be a deal breaker because she was not happy that she didn't have something solid to hold on to. And it's also something that was constantly preying on my mind as a rider, because when you're riding this bike with a pillion, you sort of forget you have a pillion there. This bike is so good at it that, you can't feel the pillion is on board. And I'm constantly checking my mirrors to make sure that she's still there and hasn't fallen off. Now, it's clear to me that this motorcycle was very much designed with pillion use in mind. It handles it really well. It's a really well balanced motorcycle at high speed or low speed. It just balances very nicely with a pillion on the back. Most motorcycles can be a bit of a challenge in traffic when you're carrying a pillion, because the slightest movement from the pillion rider and you don't have that momentum to steady the bike and you find yourself wobbling around a little bit. There was none of that with the BSA GoldStar, and we did spend a fair amount of time in traffic. I mean, it is just worth mentioning when pulling into my drive, Paula's car is usually sort of in the way and there's quite a tight gap for me to get through with the bike to get the bike back towards the garage, ready for sort of putting it away. Normally, I ask Paula to get off at the entrance to the drive so that I can navigate safely through that gap, but there's no need to do that with the GoldStar because it is really well balanced, and that's on a gravel drive. Now, I think there's a couple of reasons for this inherent pillion stability. One is the steering rake, which is quite gradual. I'll go into that in the main review. And the other is the fact that this bike, the seating height is quite low, so the whole centre of gravity is pretty low. You put those two things together and you have a very stable motorcycle no matter how much weight it's carrying. And obviously that low seat height means that the pillion can get on and off the bike very easily without disrupting the rider who's trying to hold the bike up. On most of the motorcycles I've owned in the past, when it comes to a pillion getting on, I normally have to tell them to use the foot peg to sort of get a leg up onto the bike, which, makes it a challenge for me to hold the bike steady for a second or two. In order for them to be able to actually mount the motorcycle, the GoldStar isn't like that. Paula's only, I think, 5'4", and she's able to easily just swing a leg over onto the saddle and get onto it from the pavement without, necessitating using the pillion foot peg. So clearly BSA have thought all this out at the design stage. In that respect, they've made a really good job of it as far as I'm concerned. Braking on this motorcycle has been a really nice surprise. Again, poor brakes with a pillion can be a bit of an issue. Even good brakes with a pillion can be a bit of an issue. Ineffective braking is problematic, and harsh braking potentially is just as problematic. I mean, getting head-butted on the back of your head by a helmeted rider isn't good for the pillion or the rider. I'm gonna be honest, I've never really rated Brembos as being anything particularly special. I've always seen them as being a way for a manufacturer to build some perceived added value into a motorcycle without really offering much more than any other brand of well set up braking system can afford. But the Brembo system on the BSA GoldStar, I've got to admit, does feel a little bit special. You don't have the usual weak braking response that we're used to from the back brake, although it's not as pronounced as something like the Royal Enfield shotgun. It is, however, much better than your average motorcycle, front and rear. But it's not so much the braking force that's available to you, it's the way that you're able to control it. And that's what sets the GoldStar apart from a lot of other motorcycles that I've ridden in recent years. Even in a situation where I needed to brake quite sharply, I found the whole setup really intuitive. I never found myself having to grab a handful, even though the occasional situation did seem quite urgent. I was always able to bring the bike to a halt or scrub off speed in a calm and controlled manner, which is important to reduce fork dive, especially when you've got a pillion on board. And it goes a long way in building up confidence, not just for the rider, but for the pillion as well. It's all part of what makes any motorcycle an accomplished and comfortable pillion tourer. Now, I've heard the suspension come in for some criticism in that it's underdamped and it's too soft. It might be for a sports bike, but it's perfect for a bike like this. In fact, it reminds me of what suspension used to be like back in the 70s on the big Japanese bikes. You know, it was tuned more towards rider and pillion comfort and less towards performance. And just like those Japanese bikes of the 70s, it still performs and handles well. You can feel the imperfections on the road, the ruts and the potholes, but the shock absorbers on the GoldStar do exactly what shock absorbers are meant to do. They absorb the shock. Occasionally on some road surfaces it can feel a bit floaty or bouncy, but what is most important for a lot of riders and pillions is that it gives you long range comfort. This bike is set up to be comfortable over long distances while still giving a more than acceptable level of control and handling. I've possessed heavyweight tourers that don't come anywhere near what BSA have managed to accomplish with the GoldStar. Right, and before I hand you over to Paula, I suppose we'd best discuss how the engine copes with that extra weight. I suspect that there are balancing shafts fitted to this large single-cylinder engine, because it is incredibly smooth and vibration free. Now, I've heard people say that they do feel vibration. I don't really see it as vibration myself. It's a comfortable, non-obtrusive resonance. I've owned Boxer twins that vibrate more than this bike does, and as we all know, vibration can be a killer over long distances. You've got nothing to worry about with this single-cylinder water-cooled 650. And like every other aspect of this bike, the motor just doesn't seem to notice that you're carrying a pillion. To me, it seemed to respond and react in just the same way that it does when you're riding solo. From 40 miles an hour in top gear, it will zip up to 60 or 70 miles an hour in the blink of an eye, and I've got no doubt it will go well beyond that quickly. It takes hills in its stride, and you can comfortably, I reckon, sit at 70 miles an hour all day with a pillion and luggage. This bike is built for it. So here we go, straight after this roundabout coming up. This is my usual hill test that I do with any motorcycle to see if it'll easily hold 60 miles an hour in top gear up Market Wheaton Hill, which is a notorious hill in the area that I live in. It's not a particularly steep incline, but it goes on for a power sapping 2 or 3 miles. And don't forget, this is not solo, this is carrying a pillion. not a lot I can add to that. The bike just giggled all the way up. Right, so you didn't used to like riding pillion with me on the T120 on the Triumph, did you?
No.
And what was the reason for that?
It's hard to really recall because it was such a long time ago, but I think what I found with this bike is that my vision is better, because instead of just looking to the left and to the right, I'm able to look over your shoulder and I can see more and I feel more part of the ride. When you used to have your bike before, and we used to have the camera things, how we used to talk to each other.
Oh, the intercoms.
Yeah. So we used to have the intercoms. So I felt as though that I had that connection with you, and I think transitioning over from not having that was probably the first bike. So maybe some of my views of that bike may be unfair. I'd have to go back on it again to give another.
T120.
Yeah, to give another opinion of it.
You didn't like the suspension on that bike, I recall.
I didn't. I think it was everything.
You used to complain that it hurt.
Your recall is a lot better than mine.
Well, yeah, because I remember you screaming in my ear about it. Right, so going on to the BSA then. How have you found it generally riding on the back?
I like it. It's easier to get on and off.
Is that because it's lower?
Yeah, I think it's lower. But then when you're on the bike, you feel higher. I feel, because like I said before, I can see over your shoulder. I can see
I think that's because the seat's slightly higher. The pillion pad's slightly higher than the rider's seat, so you can see right over my shoulders.
Yeah. So
I
can see frontal, left, right. I feel more part of the ride. It's probably the closest experience of being a rider on the bike instead of being a pillion.
Right, and does that make you feel more secure being able to see ahead? Because I'm just thinking from the point of view that when if you can only see from left to right, you can't see what's coming up, so you don't know when I'm going to brake, or if you don't know of any incidents coming up, so you can't prepare for it. The first thing you know is the brakes are going on and you're lurching forward. Does it help you prepare more for braking and stuff like that in corners?
Yeah, exactly. You like, you're viewing the road, so I know when to lean with you, go with your bike, looking for hazards as well. I feel as though that I'm more able to do that. And like you say, it's preparing myself so that I'm not jolting forward or giving you a headbutt with my helmet.
The back of my helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to show them the back of my helmet.
There's nothing wrong with the back of your helmet, but you do complain a bit. But sometimes it's when it's caught me off guard. Whereas now, I think with being pillion on the BSA, I'm more prepared, so I'm already positioning myself.
Right. So your all-round vision's better on the BSA than on, say, well, I think all of my bikes really.
Yeah,
because you're just that little bit higher up.
Mm.
What about comfort on the seat?
It's firm but comfy. I think with the suspension and the seat, it's just more comfortable to ride. It's just, you're going to get the odd bumps in the road, which is inevitable because of the conditions of some of the roads. You can't avoid that, but overall, I'd say the comfort on the BSA is, far superior.
How would you describe the ride quality? Is it firm, floaty?
Firm. It's firm, but as I say, it's comfy. It's not too firm.
So you can, when you go over potholes, like, you can feel it because you're sat right over the rear shocks. You can feel that you're going over them, and you get the sensation that you're going over them, but it's not. Is it harsh or is it soft?
No, it's soft. It's a bounce. It's just as much as the seat feels firm, there's give in it. It's when you go over those bumps, you bounce with the bump, and it's not uncomfortable on ride at all.
Right. Is it like bouncing on a mattress?
No.
All right, what about space on the seat? Have you got enough room?
Yeah, initially the first time we went out on the bike together, I did feel as though that we were close, but I think it was because I was dealing with lots of different emotions that are going on the bike, because it was the first time I didn't have a grab rail on a bike as a
it's
pillion.
a bit of an issue, isn't it? Not been standard. So what are you using? Using the seat?
Yeah, the seat grab, and I think with that, and going on the bike for the first time and not really sure of what to expect, I think I was just more conscious of everything. But as time's gone on, I feel like the distance between us on the bike is more than sufficient. It's not uncomfortable. I don't feel too close to you. I don't feel as though that I'm hanging off the back or anything like that. I've got movement there, and I think what I would prefer is to have the option of having either the seat grab or the
Yeah, I mean, you can buy a grab rail for it, but it's quite expensive. It's £150 because it comes in two parts. Really, my personal view is that should have been standard with the bike, with any bike. If it's got a dual seat and it's got rear foot pegs for a pillion, it should have a grab rail standard.
It's the first bike that you've ever had that's not had one.
Yeah.
And I had to overcome that feeling of not having that security of having that grab rail there. But I found over time, by going on the bike several times with you now, I'm comfortable just holding the grab rail.
Yeah.
You got the seat grab.
Seat strap.
Seat strap.
Should we decide on a name for it? Should we call it a seat strap?
The seat strap. Okay. So the seat strap, I'm comfortable in just using that now, because on reflection, what I was finding when we was going on the other bikes like the 350 and using the grab rail, I was tending to just use it with my right arm, and over time, because we were going out on it quite a few times, my shoulder was aching a bit, and I don't get that now on the BSA.
Yeah. So in an ideal situation, then you like the seat strap, but you would prefer to have a grab rail as well, so you can alternate between the two.
Yeah. Then the choice is yours then.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to say about the BSA?
I think it's a really nice bike. It's attractive. It's comfort. It's just really a nice pleasure to be a pillion on the back. I feel more part of the ride experience.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause we've not done any really long rides, have we? I think the furthest we've done about 30 miles in one go. How did you feel after that one?
Fine. It was comfortable.
Does it start to get uncomfortable after a while, or?
No, not really.
You don't,
no.
I've got to admit, you don't shuffle about much on the back. There's times I have to check you're still there, to be honest.
Not falling asleep or something.
Just still there.
I try to be a good pillion.
So, you like the styling of the bike. You found there's enough room on the seat. Yeah. The seat, you say the seat's firm. I found it quite squishy. I like it.
Do you think it's just because of the position you being at the front and
maybe? It might be that there might be a change of density in the seat from front to back. I would doubt it, but it's always possible. With you being higher up, maybe it is a little bit.
Maybe it's just because I've got more cushioning.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, I don't want to
I was going to say that. I thought I'd get that in before you did.
Don't know what you mean. I've lost my drift now. What about foot peg positioning for you? Do you find that natural or?
Yeah, fine. Yeah. It's comfortable. There's the odd occasion where I've maybe when we're stationary, I might just adjust my foot on the peg slightly.
Oh yeah, we all do that.
Yeah, well, I don't know that.
But you found the seating position quite natural, you know?
Yeah. I'd say, and it's hard to recall because over time it changes, doesn't it, your memory, but I'd say it's the comfiest bike that you've had.
And that even including the classic 350?
Yeah. And I mean, I like that 350.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed going on the back of that.
You don't like the Interceptor, do you?
No.
Okay. Right, so okay, I think that's it. So there you have it, straight from the lips of Officer Poncherello. the most comfortable pillion bike I've ever had. And I suppose we ought to discuss the miles per gallon figures for this bike. Now, I'm not going to tell you how I arrived at these figures, I'll save that for the main review. BSA quotes a figure of 70.6 miles to the gallon, I think it is. Presumably that's solo. The figures I've come up with is 72.3 with a pillion on. And I've checked that, I've double checked it and I've triple checked it, and it's correct. Tune into the main review for this bike to see how I arrived at those figures and the methods that I used to calculate them. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. If you would like to support me in other ways, you can do that via my Patreon page, through PayPal donations, or via the super thanks button down below. Either way, it's much appreciated. I am of course going to be back on Friday, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.